was late. I was late getting here today. And those of you in the circle and those of you out there in the internet who know me are like, what? Michael was late. But it's okay. I gotta tell you why. I was late because as I was running here, Terminator style, I was running past some folks, and there was an elderly woman who had fallen on the ground. And she was on the ground. There was a young lady, probably about my age, standing beside her. And I went hoofing past these people, running. Here I go. Got to be here, hang out with you guys. And I was already going to be late, but as I'm running, I see this woman on the ground, and she has the face. And any of you who have seen someone in distress, you know what I'm talking about, the face. I need your help, face. And it happened to be a non-indigenous woman on the ground. And I happened to be very late. But it was important for me when I see a human being, my neighbor, in distress, asking me for help, I have to honor that. Because for me, it's hard to ask for help. That's a really, really difficult thing to do. And for this woman to be on the ground in a situation where she's clearly physically in pain, clearly in need of assistance, and to reach out to a random stranger who's in a rush, and with her body language ask me for help, I thought that was huge. And it was important for me to honor that woman's request. And so I stopped. And I was like, I'm going to be late. But turned around and I went back and I said, hey, what's happening here, ladies? And this elderly woman, probably in her 70s, said, I've fallen down and I need help getting up. And this young lady wasn't able on her own to help lift this woman. So together, these two non-indigenous ladies and myself, we, the one non-indigenous lady lifted with me this elderly lady, and we lifted her up. And she was in physical pain, and you could see and just feel in her body how much pain this woman was in. And as we brought her back up, and we carried her, grabbed her purse, handed her purse, and just checked up with her. Are you okay? Do you need anything? And she was simply grateful. She was simply grateful that people stopped, helped her after she fell, and was very thankful. And now naturally me and this other young woman are like, are you okay? Are you okay? Do you need help? What do you need? Here's a cell phone. Do you want us to walk you to where you're going? So we kind of follow this lady for about half a block, just like fussing over her and checking in to make sure that if she needs anything, we are here. Like, what do you need from us? And in the end, she ended up saying, okay, I don't know, I just had a dizzy spell, I'm good to go, you please leave me now. And it was one of those, get away from me. She didn't say get away from me, but she was like, okay, you've helped me, thank you, done, go, away. So I was like, okay, I'm late anyway, so later ladies, gotta go. Oof, ran here. I just thought that was a crazy thing to happen to me on my way here today, talking about allies and solidarity. Because that moment is the lesson. That moment is the lesson. I was late to come and build relationships with some allies. But more important than this man-made construct of time are the needs of our human relatives. And so it was critical for me, especially as a young Indigenous man, to exemplify the teachings that the elders have shared with me, and to role model the example that I wish for other young Indigenous and non-Indigenous people to model, to stop and reach out to that woman and say, it doesn't matter if the Pope is expecting me, you need me now. You need me now. And I think that exemplifies the way that I believe allies and solidarity building needs to be. We have to do what's necessary now for humans and not pay so much attention to these bizarre man-made constructs that we create. There are going to be, I'm confident in the future, action plans and strategies and recommendations and you name it, I'm sure they're coming. But the reality is, if I have food and you are hungry, I want to give you that food. And it doesn't matter how many policies tell me not to do it, you are my neighbor. It is important for me to share. And you mentioned Canadian identity, and I wanted just to touch on this because I think Canada and what we have been built on is a very Indigenous concept. It's when, in the beginning, when Europeans began coming over, indigenous people, Europeans would not have survived if it were not for the generosity of indigenous people. And so they shared their space, they shared their skills, they shared the land, the resources, the fish, the animals, the teachings. They shared all of these things with these visitors. And they said, you know what? Yeah, sure, this may be where we live, but we don't own this land. But we can all live here together. And, you know, what you take is what you give, and, like, we're trying to demonstrate to you how it goes. I don't know that the Europeans were paying attention.
They were stuck in a different mindset.
Yeah, and so like, I kind of want to fast forward, like, just emphasize that, but I want to fast forward to today. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned something about, you know, your Canadian identity, and it was just Remembrance Day, and you know, it's a time of patriotism in Canada. People are like, yeah, Canada, and I think one of the things that happens around, you know, things that are patriotic is people say, I'm Canadian, and they start celebrating what it is to be Canadian. And we have to remember where Canada was born from, first of all. People say, who are the two founding nations of Canada? The English and the French. Right. So, first of all, okay, Indigenous. Let's throw that up in there too, right? Because English, French equal dead if there's no Indigenous. Mm-hmm. So, first things first. Now, what does it mean to be Canadian? And I'm seeing things about people be like, I don't see the color of the person. I only see the heart, human heart, right? I don't see your color. I only see who you are. And if any of the folks listening or any of the folks here say that to people, I want you to stop it right now. I want you to stop it right now. If you look at me and you don't see the color of my skin, you are ignoring an entirely critical piece of my identity. And what you're saying is you would rather see me as you're comfortable seeing me as opposed to seeing me as I am. Mm-hmm. So don't ignore my color. It's important. Don't ignore the color of my skin or the color of the skin of the people in your congregation. It's important. We have to acknowledge people who they are from their perspective. I'm not here to make you comfortable. I'm here to tell you honestly who I am and how I think you can respect other Indigenous people. And the reality is the best way to build relationships and allies and solidarity with Indigenous people is the exact same strategy you would employ any people. Because the most frustrating part of the Indigenous struggle is how we have to humanize ourselves before we ask anybody for anything. Why did Rennell Harper's family have to release the name of Rennell Harper for the public to see this little girl as a little girl? Why did they have to make that sacrifice? That little girl's life is never going to be the same. But it validates something that I'm very frustrated with. The fact that as Indigenous people, we have to humanize ourselves to say, hey, Indigenous people are humans too, and then ask for help. This is wrong. This is wrong. And it breaks my heart that I have to do it every time. Every single time. I have to. Otherwise, people don't see me. People don't hear me.
That's the doctrine of discovery.
That's the doctrine of discovery. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's critical when we talk about allies, solidarity, that we see people as they are instead of how it's comfortable for us to see them. Mm-hmm. I also think it's important for us to think about the words that we say often, because there's a lot of good words in the church. Mm-hmm. Actions don't match these words. Mm-hmm. They don't. We want to live in right relationships. I hear this all the time. But I don't see you at Indigenous-led events. And if you don't come to my house, I ain't coming to yours. And the other thing I wanted to touch on about what it is to be Canadian. People, and I've seen this a lot in the last week, have been saying, if in Canada, our schools and, our society teaches you how to be Canadian. We have Canadian values. And Canadian values mean we all, work together. And Canadian values mean we all love Canada in the same way, and I'm going to pick on Remembrance Day because that's what just passed, and people were emphasizing, we have to acknowledge and honor those who have fought and died for our country to be what it is today. And for people to come into our country and to not learn about Canadian values in our Canadian schools is unacceptable. If you come to Canada, you need to learn Canadian values. That's what people have been saying. I've been reading it, and my jaw has been on the floor. And my jaw is on the floor because these people are expecting immigrant families, is the word that people have been using, and I'll just say what people have been saying. They have been trying to point the finger and other these people, other these families. Say, you immigrant families better learn what it is to be Canadian, because that's what it is here. We're Canadian. We have to learn about what Canada is. And we have to honor those who have fought and died in wars for us. What about those who fought and died not in wars? What about those who fought and died against Europeans and against Canadians in the Indigenous community? I have to honor those people every day, not just on Remembrance Day. Those are my ancestors, and it is my responsibility to them to continue the work that I do today, not just on Remembrance Day. And so when people are talking about how we have to, that will teach us how to be Canadian, I want to challenge those people. I want to challenge those people and say, look, you're saying people who come to Canada need to learn English so they can be English or French so they can be successful here. How many non-Indigenous Canadians speak an Indigenous language? Because by that logic, when Europeans came here, they should have learned the Indigenous languages that we were already speaking. Hello, this is the culture that's here. You have to come and be educated by the culture that's here. Mm-hmm. So if you're a non-Indigenous person trying to point fingers at other immigrant groups or newcomer groups or even Indigenous people and saying, you're not Canadian enough, I want you to say that sentence to me in the Indigenous language of your territory, and then we can have a conversation. Because if you don't know how to speak an Indigenous language, you have no right to demand any other group learn how to speak Canadian or English. We have no right. So let's think about that. So the final thing that I wanted to say is Aboriginal Day is on the summer solstice. And Aboriginal Day is another day of celebration in Canada. But the intention of Aboriginal Day was actually in 1996 was something called Aboriginal Solidarity Day. And I think we often lose the solidarity because now it's like a celebration and let's gloss over all of the crap and let's celebrate the good, which I think it's important for us to be strength-based and celebrate the good. But I'm not ready to abandon the solidarity that comes on the summer solstice. And on Aboriginal Solidarity Day, I don't want to go hang out with a bunch of Nietzsches, even though that's really nice. I'm going to commit to going out to other communities on Aboriginal Solidarity Day and going and speaking to a Somali group or speaking to a Christian group or going and speak to a group of people who are new to Canada and say to them, we are the Indigenous people in Canada and I am here today hanging out with you, spending time with you, building a relationship with you because this is what I want you to do. That's what solidarity is. Aboriginal Day in Canada should be a time where we all get together, not where those natives go over there and have their little powwow. No. Aboriginal Solidarity Day. And this is the challenge that I have for Indigenous people who are watching. Mm-hmm. Solidarity means you go to them. We have to lead by example. And, okay, sorry, I know I said I was done. One more thing. Meet Me at the Bell Tower is one of the initiatives that I'm a part of. And I'm happy Adele Compton is here today because Allies in Solidarity happens every Friday in the north end of Winnipeg. So if you need a lesson, come on down to Selkirk Avenue Friday nights at 6 o'clock p.m. and you can see the Solidarity in action in our city. Aboriginal Youth Opportunities, the youth group that I work with, has a peace rally every single Friday called Meet Me at the Bell Tower, where we challenge North Enders and all Winnipeggers and anyone who happens to be in the neighborhood at the time to come down. We ring a bell and we share stories about how we can lead by example to stop violence. We have partnered with a church group called the Indigenous Family Centre that give us freely their space every single Friday. And they've said things to us like, whenever you need the building, use it. Whatever you need from us, tell us. They've allowed us to use their charitable status because Aboriginal Youth Opportunities is a volunteer-driven movement. We don't have a staff. We don't have a board. We don't have official, a building or anything. But we do have a lot of young people who are committed to reviving our teachings and leading by example. And we have a lot of partnerships, with different groups, including church groups, who are taking the lead from these young Indigenous people. And as part of that lesson, Adele Compton made this awesome book. And it has the best title in the world. I have to just read the title, and then you guys will have to read it yourself. Renewed Spirit in Winnipeg's North End, an emerging Aboriginal young adult co-creative leadership model. Ayo! So anyway, this is Adele's master's thesis. She wrote it on Meet Me at the Bell Tower, and it talks about what this youth-led movement can teach institutions about right relationships, what Aboriginal Youth Opportunities and Meet Me at the Bell Tower can teach specifically the church about youth engagement, and about how spiritual renewal can happen on a street corner. It doesn't have to be in a church on a Sunday. We're all spirits, we're all creators. And I think that's what solidarity really is, when we begin to recognize that in one another. But anyway, you guys should read the book, it's good.